The first bullet shattered the window, the sharp crack preceding any comprehension in Leo's brain of what his eyes had just registered. For the third time, he'd watched the nondescript gray sedan creep slowly past old Joe's burger joint. A primal, animalistic part of him screamed, "Wrong, wrong, wrong." It was the kind of instinct forged in the unforgiving parts of town where the staccato rhythm of gunshots was a far more common sound than the wail of sirens. From the passenger window, a gun barrel emerged, slick and black, snaking out like a cold tongue, seeking its target. Leo didn't allow himself to think. Thought demanded time, and time, in this moment, was measured in heartbeats, each beat drawing him closer to death. "Get down!" His body was already in motion before the words ripped from his throat. The corner booth where Mia sat, diligently working on her calculus homework, was precisely 12 feet away. Leo covered the distance in 3 powerful strides, his worn sneakers somehow gripping the grease-slicked floor. He dropped his shoulder, mimicking a tackle he'd never been strong enough to make on any football field, and collided with her like a freight train. Beautiful, untouchable Mia, the girl with the designer backpack and the curious habit of eating lunch alone despite being pretty enough to command any table, was sent sprawling backward. Her chair clattered violently as Leo's body completely enveloped hers. The world around them erupted. Asterisk tat 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 tat. Glass transformed into a deadly rain of razors, wood splintered into sharp shrapnel. The acrid scent of gunpowder mingled sickeningly with the pervasive aroma of fryer grease and the raw, suffocating fear of teenagers. Leo felt a searing punch through his left shoulder blade, then another burning kiss just below his ribs. His entire back was engulfed in fire. His lungs convulsed, desperately trying to draw air, but found only resistance. Beneath him, Mia was screaming. But she was screaming a raw, terrified sound, which meant she was alive. It meant he'd done it right. Leo's vision began to constrict, the edges darkening as if a shroud were slowly closing in. The last thing he saw before the blackness consumed him was Mia's face. Her gray eyes were wide with pure terror, yet held something else too, something that looked almost like recognition. Her lips moved, forming words he couldn't hear over the violent ringing in his ears. As consciousness slipped away and his blood began to pool on the checkered linoleum, Leo couldn't have known that those words were, "Dad's going to kill them." He couldn't have known that Dad was Rocco the Rock Valentino, the notoriously ruthless vice president of the Phantom Kings Motorcycle Club. And Leo, in his act of spontaneous heroism, certainly couldn't have known that he had just saved the most valuable person in this entire city, a life worth far more than mere money. He had just earned a debt, paid not in currency, but in the unyielding iron of loyalty. And the Phantom Kings always paid their debts. Leo Martinez had long perfected the art of invisibility. For him, it wasn't just a habit, it was a fundamental survival skill. When you're the scholarship kid at Riverside High, the one whose wardrobe consists solely of Goodwill finds and whose sneakers boast more duct tape than actual rubber, you quickly learn to occupy space without truly taking up any. You learn to eat lunch crouched in bathroom stalls. You learn which hallways to meticulously avoid during passing periods. You learn, above all, that making eye contact with guys like Brett Hoffman and his entitled football cronies is a direct invitation for a locker room beating, a humiliating swirly, or, if you're truly unlucky, both. So, Leo had become an ethereal presence, a ghost, a shadow. He was the quiet boy who always chose the back row in every class, who never dared to raise his hand even when he knew the answer, and who could effortlessly slip through crowded hallways like wisps of smoke. Old Joe's burger joint, by stark contrast, was his sanctuary. The corner booth beside the emergency exit, the one with the torn vinyl seat that no one else ever wanted, was his fortress, his only refuge. Every day after school, Leo would meticulously scrape together $2.47 for the smallest order of fries and a water cup he'd surreptitiously fill with Sprite whenever Joe wasn't looking. He'd make those few fries last a full hour, diligently doing his homework by the greasy, flickering glow of the neon open sign, always pretending he had somewhere far better to be. He didn't. Home was a cramped one-bedroom apartment he shared with his abuela, who struggled with more medical bills than English words. Home was the brutal place where the heat inevitably got shut off every winter, and eviction notices piled up with the same chilling predictability as snow. Home was where Leo lay awake at night, listening to his grandmother's wet, rasping cough, agonizing over whether her medication or their rent money was more critical this month. So, yes, Old Joe's was undeniably better. It was a Tuesday, October 15th, one of those crisp fall days where the sun seems to set far too early and the entire world feels like it's holding its breath. Leo first noticed the pattern precisely 3 weeks after Mia Chun had transferred to Riverside High. She had materialized in his AP calculus class like a sudden, stunning vision, all sleek black hair, sharply defined cheekbones, and an unapproachable expression that unequivocally declared, "Don't even think about talking to me." The guys, of course, had tried. Brett Hoffman, predictably, had swaggered up to her locker, his Letterman jacket slung over his shoulder, a practiced teeth-whitening strip smile plastered on his face. Mia had simply looked straight through him, as if he were made of glass. After that, she ate alone, a peculiar habit for a girl of her striking beauty. Girls who looked like Mia typically held court at the popular table, surrounded by a deferential entourage of admirers and imitators. But Mia, it seemed, genuinely preferred her own company, always engrossed in a book or homework, perpetually wearing earbuds, and consistently projecting an aura that screamed, "Leave me the hell alone." Leo respected that. He understood it. What he couldn't fathom, however, was why she had started coming to Old Joe's. This place was specifically for kids like him, the ones who couldn't afford the trendy coffee shop downtown or the organic smoothie bar by the mall. Mia's designer backpack probably cost more than Leo's entire wardrobe. Her phone was undoubtedly the newest model. Even her seemingly simple hairpins looked expensive. Yet, every single day for the past week, she had been here. Same booth by the window. Same Cobb salad, which she barely touched. Same calculus homework, which, judging by her exceptional test scores, she definitely didn't need any help with. Leo tried not to stare. He truly did. But there was something about her, an undeniable presence, that utterly sabotaged his meticulously cultivated invisibility training. Perhaps it was the way she delicately chewed her bottom lip when she was deeply concentrating. Perhaps it was the profound sadness that seemed to reside permanently in her eyes, a familiar kind of melancholy that eerily mirrored his own. Or perhaps it was simply that she was beautiful in a way that made his 16-year-old brain short-circuit. Whatever the reason, Leo had noticed her. And on this particular Tuesday, as the October sun dipped below the horizon and Old Joe's began to fill with the usual after-school crowd, Leo noticed something else entirely: the gray sedan. It cruised past for the first time at 4:47 p.m. Leo only caught it in his peripheral vision, a beat-up Chevy Malibu with darkly tinted windows and a noticeable dent in the rear quarter panel. Nothing special, nothing particularly worth remembering. Except it came back. At 4:52 p.m., the same car, executing the same unervingly slow crawl past the front window. This time, Leo managed to see the driver, a man in a black baseball cap, his face obscured by shadow, his eyes hidden behind sunglasses despite the fact that the sun was already almost down. Leo's stomach tightened into a knot. That old, familiar instinct, sharpened by years of navigating dangerous neighborhoods where every dark doorway harbored potential peril, began to whisper its ominous warning. Wrong. Something's very wrong. He quickly glanced at Mia. She was hunched over her calculus textbook, completely absorbed, utterly oblivious. Her dark hair cascaded across her face like a protective curtain, shutting out the encroaching world. The sedan passed for a third time at 4:58 p.m. This time, it slowed to an almost imperceptible crawl. Leo's heart began to hammer violently against his ribs. He slowly set down his cold fries, his mouth suddenly parched. Around him, Old Joe's hummed with its usual predictable chaos, sophomore girls giggling conspiratorially over their phones, freshman boys engaged in a messy ketchup packet war, and the eternal, comforting smell of burnt beef and fryer oil. Normal. Safe. But that car was profoundly wrong, and it was stopping. Right in front of Mia's window. Leo stood up without conscious thought or intention. His chair scraped loudly against the linoleum floor, a jarring sound that drew a few fleeting glances. The invisible boy, suddenly visible. But their attention immediately slid away. He was just background noise, not important. The sedan's passenger window rolled down with a low, mechanical whirring sound that Leo could somehow hear distinctly above the general din of the restaurant. It was as if his ears had suddenly become superpowered, as if the universe itself was deliberately slowing everything down so he could grasp precisely what was about to unfold. A hand emerged from the darkness within the car. The hand held a gun, a very big, very black, very real gun. The barrel swung with terrifying precision toward Mia's booth, like a compass needle inexorably finding north. And Leo's body moved. He didn't decide to move. Decision implied choice, implied thought, implied the luxurious indulgence of weighing options. Leo possessed none of those things. He had only raw instinct and pure adrenaline, coupled with a sudden, crystalline certainty that if he didn't move right now, that beautiful, sad girl by the window was going to die. Get down. The words tore from his throat as his legs pumped furiously. 12 feet. The distance between his secluded corner booth and Mia's window seat. The agonizing distance between life and death. 9 feet. Mia looked up, confusion clouding her gray eyes as they found his face. She didn't understand. How could she? She had probably never heard a gunshot outside of the sanitized safety of movies. 6 feet. The gun's barrel completed its deadly arc. Leo could now clearly see the black, cavernous hole of the muzzle. He could see death itself, yawning open. 3 feet. Mia's eyes went wide with dawning horror. She had seen the gun. Her mouth opened, a silent gasp preparing for a scream. 0. Leo hit her like a linebacker, like the athlete he'd never been, could never be, except for this one perfect, impossible moment. His shoulder connected with her chest, his arms instinctively wrapping around her waist. His momentum carried them both backward and down. Her chair toppled with a crash, and they crumpled to the floor in a chaotic tangle of limbs and sheer terror. As they fell, Leo twisted his body. Instinct again, ensuring his back was squarely against the window, making certain his body completely covered hers, ensuring that if bullets came, boom, 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 they would tear through him first. The world became a maelstrom of sound and fury. The window exploded inward, glass shards transforming into 1,000 crystalline daggers. Wood paneling splintered violently. Vinyl seats erupted in puffs of shredded foam. Someone was screaming, multiple someones, and Leo couldn't tell if one of those guttural screams was his own. Pain blossomed across his back like grotesque flowers made of fire. One searing bloom just below his left shoulder blade, the first bullet. Another near his spine, just above his belt line. The second bullet. A dozen smaller, stinging blooms erupted from flying glass and debris, shrapnel from a war he had never enlisted in. But beneath him, warm and alive and trembling like a trapped bird, Mia was miraculously untouched. The gunfire abruptly ceased. A suffocating silence rushed in to fill the terrifying void, broken only by the distant wail of car alarms, fading screams, and the wet, labored sound of Leo's own breathing. He tried to push himself up, tried desperately to check if Mia was okay, but his arms felt heavy and unresponsive. Everything felt distant, cottony, and terribly wrong. Don't move. Mia's voice was small and sharp, edged with panic. Oh God, don't move. There's so much blood. She meant his blood. Leo could feel it now, warm and sticky, rapidly soaking through his thrift store t-shirt, pooling beneath them both. His blood gushing from the holes in his back. He mumbled, the word barely audible. Getting shot hurt a lot more than movies ever made it seem. Am I okay? He added, though he definitely wasn't. His vision was playing strange tricks, the edges blurring into a fuzzy gray. You okay? You're shot. You're seriously shot. Mia was openly weeping now, her trembling hands pressed against his face, her gray eyes swimming with tears and overwhelming terror. "Why did you? You don't even know me. Why would you?" Leo tried to offer a smile. It probably looked more like a pained grimace. Seemed like the thing to do. He managed to croak. Somewhere far away, sirens began to wail, growing closer. Much closer. Then, Leo heard the thunderous roar of motorcycle engines. Many of them. Like a swarm of mechanical hornets, all converging on this rundown burger joint in this forgotten part of town. Mia heard them too. Her tears stopped abruptly as if someone had flipped a switch. She fumbled for her phone with shaking, blood-slicked hands, punched a speed dial number, and brought it to her ear. "Code Red," she said, her voice startlingly cold and controlled, despite the tear tracks still streaking her cheeks. "Old Joe's on Riverside. They found me." A brief pause. "I'm okay, but the boy who saved me. Dad, he's dying. Dad." Leo tried to ask what she meant, but the darkness was closing in relentlessly now, the gray edges of his vision rapidly creeping toward the center. The last thing he saw was Mia's face, hovering above him like a beautiful and terrible moon, her expression fraught with fear. The last thing he heard was the thunder of motorcycles, growing louder and louder until it shook the broken windows and rattled his very bones. The last thing he felt was Mia's hand gripping his, holding on as if he were the only solid thing left in a world gone mad. Then, the darkness swallowed him whole. Mia had lived her entire life with the chilling awareness that this day might eventually come. When you are the daughter of Rocco, the Rock, Valentino, vice president of the notorious Phantom Kings MC, the club's enforcer of justice, and the relentless collector of debts, both monetary and blood, you grow up understanding that the sins of the father inevitably become the vulnerabilities of the child. You become a target, a strategic pressure point, merely a pawn on a brutal chessboard played by men who measure loyalty in scars and settle every dispute with unflinching violence. Her father had, in his own way, attempted to provide her with a normal life, private schools, ballet lessons, a bedroom painted lavender with actual fresh lavender sprigs in vases on the windowsill. He had striven to build an impenetrable wall between her and the brutal world he inhabited, a world of leather and chrome, of brotherhood forged and paid for in blood. But that wall had always contained cracks. And 3 weeks ago, those cracks had widened into gaping chasms when the Viper's Nest rivals, enemies, utterly despicable cockroaches, had firebombed the Phantom Kings clubhouse in a coordinated, devastating attack that left 2 brothers fighting for their lives in the hospital and one tragically buried in the ground. War had been unequivocally declared, and in this war, there were no non-combatants. Consequently, Mia had been swiftly relocated. Pulled from her exclusive private academy, she was dropped into Riverside High under a fake last name. Her identity was meticulously scrubbed from all social media, and her every movement was constantly monitored by club prospects who looked like ordinary college kids, but carried concealed weapons and possessed the chilling knowledge of 17 different ways to kill a man with their bare hands. She had been given strict instructions: blend in, make no friends, draw no attention, and simply survive until the war inevitably ended. She had been doing so remarkably well until today, until a seemingly insignificant boy with kind eyes and discount sneakers had, without a moment's hesitation, thrown himself into a hail of bullets explicitly meant for her. Now, kneeling in a rapidly spreading pool of that boy's blood, Mia felt the last, fragile pretense of her normal life shatter completely, just like the window behind them. "Code Red," she repeated into the phone, surprised by the steady timbre of her own voice. Training. Her father had meticulously drilled her on this exact scenario since she was 8 years old. "Old Joe's on Riverside. They found me. Are you hit?" Her father's voice was like granite given sound, hard, unyielding, barely containing the molten magma of rage seething beneath it. "No, I'm fine. But the boy who saved me." Mia looked down at Leo's pale face, at the blood bubbling ominously between his lips. "Dad, he's dying. Prospects are 3 minutes out. Ambulance is 5. Keep pressure on the wounds. Do not leave his side." The line went dead. Mia dropped her phone and immediately pressed both palms firmly against Leo's back, feeling hot blood pulse sickeningly between her fingers. Around them, Old Joe's had devolved into screaming chaos. People trampled each other in a desperate scramble toward the exits. Someone was shouting frantically about calling 911. The pervasive smell of gunpowder mixed nauseatingly with the familiar burger grease and the raw, tangible fear of teenagers. "Stay with me," Mia whispered fiercely to the unconscious boy beneath her. "Please, stay with me. You can't die. You don't get to die." He had saved her. This random kid she had never once spoken to, never even acknowledged, had clearly seen death coming and had chosen, without a shred of hesitation, to place himself directly between her and the bullets. No pause for thought, no consideration for himself, just pure, undeniably stupid, yet utterly beautiful heroism. The kind of raw heroism her father would unquestionably respect. The kind of heroism that bought a debt so profound it could truly never be repaid. The motorcycle engines arrived first, a deafening wall of sound that made the surviving windows rattle violently. Through the shattered front of Old Joe's, Mia saw them, a dozen bikes, perhaps even more. Mostly Harley-Davidsons, their riders clad in heavy leather cuts, emblazoned with the Phantom King's logo, a crown skull with wings of flame. They immediately formed a protective perimeter around the building with military precision, bikes positioned nose out, engines idling, riders scanning the street with hands resting on their concealed weapons. Securing the scene. Protecting their princess. Two of them, Bull and Reaper, her usual shadows, dismounted swiftly and jogged through the destroyed entrance. Bull was 6'5" and built like his namesake, with a shaved head covered in intricate Nordic runes. Reaper was smaller, leaner, but his eyes held a kind of cold, calculating intelligence that made even the smartest people instantly nervous. "Princess?" Bull rumbled, dropping to one knee beside her. His massive hands immediately went to Leo's neck, expertly finding a pulse. "You good?" "I'm not the one bleeding out," Mia snapped, her voice sharp with desperation. "Help him." Reaper was already pulling a trauma kit from beneath his cut. "Entry wounds," he stated clinically. "Upper back. Exit wounds." He rolled Leo slightly, and Mia saw the blood-soaked front of the boy's shirt. Damn. Through and through. Both of them. Lungs probably punctured. "He's drowning." "Then do something." Mia's control was visibly cracking now, raw fear leaking through the cracks. "He saved me. He just literally saved me." Bull's massive hands moved with surprising gentleness, packing gauze into Leo's wounds while Reaper efficiently set up in four-line. These men weren't EMTs, but in the MC world, you quickly learned how to treat gunshot wounds, or you simply didn't survive for long. The ambulance arrived 90 seconds later, sirens wailing their piercing song. But by then, Leo was barely stabilized. The paramedics took one look at the chaotic scene, at the intimidating ring of bikers, at Mia's blood-soaked hands, and wisely asked no questions. As they carefully loaded Leo onto a stretcher, Mia tried to follow. Bull's massive hand on her shoulder stopped her. "Your dad's orders. You ride with us. Now, princess." Mia looked back at Leo's unconscious form one last time, committing his face to memory. The sharp jawline that looked too angular, as if he didn't get enough to eat. The dark eyebrows that were far too expressive for someone who tried so hard to be invisible. The generous mouth that had actually smiled at her, truly smiled, as if she were worth smiling at just moments before the world exploded. "I'll see you at the hospital," she whispered, knowing he couldn't hear. "I promise." Then Bull was lifting her effortlessly, as if she weighed nothing, carrying her toward the waiting bikes as police cars began to arrive, their blue and red lights flashing frantically. Mia caught a fleeting glimpse of her calculus homework still lying on the table, now grimly decorated with blood spatter and broken glass. Guess she wouldn't need to turn that in after all. Reaper had already started his bike. Mia climbed on behind him, wrapping her arms tightly around his leather-clad waist, and then they were moving. The entire convoy peeled away from Old Joe's with a guttural roar that completely drowned out the mounting police sirens. They headed east, speeding toward Mercy General Hospital. But first, they made one critical stop. The Phantom Kings clubhouse sat on 5 acres of fenced-in land on the industrial edge of town. It was a converted warehouse, surrounded by a formidable array of bikes and the unbreakable brotherhood of the club. This was sacred ground, the place where all serious club business was conducted and where club justice was unfailingly delivered. Mia had practically grown up here, in the apartment above the main meeting room, lulled to sleep by the comforting rumble of engines and the boisterous laughter of men who would, without hesitation, kill for her. The bikes pulled into the fortified compound, and Mia saw the rest of the club assembled. All of them. Every patch member, every prospect, every hang-around who had earned enough trust to be invited inside the fence during a crisis. And standing at the very center of them all, arms crossed over his massive chest, his face carved from stone and seething fury, was her father. Rocco, the Rock Valentino, was 42 years old and looked as if he had been sculpted by an angry god. 6'3", 240 pounds of raw muscle and scar tissue, with a shaved head tattooed with flames and a beard that was more gray than black these days. He'd earned his road name the old-fashioned way, by being the immovable object, the unbreakable force, the man who had never backed down from a fight and never lost one that truly mattered. He wore his cut, the leather vest that proudly proclaimed his rank and brotherhood, over a simple black t-shirt, his massive arms covered in intricate ink that told the silent, brutal story of a life lived hard. On his left hand, he wore his wedding ring. On his right, his class ring. Mia's mother had died bringing her into the world, and the ring on Rocco's left hand had never, not once, come off. As Mia dismounted, her father's eyes tracked her with the intense focus of a predator identifying its prey. He was meticulously scanning for injuries, for blood that might be hers, for any minute sign that his daughter, his entire world, had been harmed. She knew the exact moment he confirmed her safety because his formidable shoulders relaxed, a microscopic shift that only she would have noticed. Then his eyes fell upon the blood staining her hands and clothes, and his jaw instantly turned to granite. "Report," he growled, the single word dripping with menace. Bull stepped forward, his voice steady. "Drive-by shooting. Riverside and 12th, gray Chevy Malibu. Dent in the rear quarter panel. Tinted windows. Full auto spray. 30 rounds minimum." Princess wasn't hit. He paused, his gaze briefly flicking to Leo. "The boy." Rocco's voice could have etched glass. "Critical. 2 GSWs to the back, through and through." He covered the princess with his body. Took all the hits. Bull paused again, letting the gravity of his next words sink in. "Saved her life, Rock." A profound silence descended upon the assembled club members. Every single one of them understood precisely what that meant, what it had to mean. You simply didn't save a Phantom King's daughter and walk away empty-handed. That wasn't how this world operated. Rocco finally turned his gaze back to Mia, his expression softening. "Barely. But it was enough. Tell me." And so she did. She recounted every detail, the ominous gray sedan circling the block, Leo's urgent warning shout, the impossibly fast way he'd crossed the distance between them, shielding her body with his own. She described how he'd unhesitatingly absorbed bullets that were meant for her. "He didn't know who I was," Mia finished, her voice cracking with raw emotion. "He just saw someone in danger and he moved." Rocco stared at her, his gaze lingering for a long moment. Then his eyes shifted to Ghost, the club's president, a lean man with silver hair and an aura of quiet authority that commanded instinctive obedience. "The Vipers?" Ghost asked, his tone low and sharp. "Has to be," Rocco replied, his jaw tight. "They leaked her location. This was a hit. We can't let that stand." "No," Ghost agreed, his voice echoing Rocco's grim resolve. "We can't." Rocco looked back at Mia, and his expression softened, shifting into something she rarely witnessed, a flicker of vulnerability. "Baby girl, I need to go to war, but I also need to be there when that boy wakes up. Help me prioritize." It was the greatest sign of respect he could offer her. Asking her opinion on club business, treating her not as a child to be protected, but as an equal whose judgment he valued. Mia didn't hesitate. "The boy first, or second?" She met her father's intense gaze without flinching. "He saved me, Dad. That debt comes before vengeance." Rocco nodded slowly, a fleeting spark of pride flickering across his scarred face. Then he turned to the assembled club members, his voice dropping to a register that made even hardened men shiver. "Prospects, find that Malibu. I want the driver and the shooter in the warehouse by midnight. Alive. I got questions that need answering. Reaper, Bull. Hospital security. Nobody gets near that kid without my approval. I don't care if God himself shows up with a bouquet. Ghost, assemble a hunting party. The Vipers just declared open season. Time to show them what happens when you target a king's family." And me? It was Snake, the club's sergeant-at-arms, a veteran whose dead eyes and quick hands spoke of countless battles. Rocco's smile was unsettling, devoid of any human warmth. "You helped me figure out how to thank a 16-year-old boy for taking bullets meant for my daughter. Because whatever we give him, it won't be enough." The club erupted in grim agreement, fists pounding on tables, voices raised in unified fury. This was the Phantom Kings at their most dangerous, not scattered and chaotic, but focused and united behind a singular, unyielding purpose: justice. But as the club organized itself for war, as bikes roared to life, weapons were distributed, and plans were meticulously made, Rocco walked over to Mia and pulled her into a hug that smelled of leather, gun oil, and utter safety. "You okay, baby girl?" he whispered into her hair. "Really okay?" Mia nodded against his chest, allowing herself to be small for just a moment, to be Daddy's little girl instead of the princess who always had to be strong. "He was so brave, Dad," she whispered back, her voice muffled. "He didn't even know me, and he was so brave." "Then we'll make sure his bravery meant something," Rocco promised softly. "We'll make sure he never regrets saving you." He pulled back, holding her at arm's length, his calloused hands surprisingly gentle on her shoulders. "Now go clean up. Change your clothes. You're covered in his blood, and when he wakes up, I don't want that to be the first thing he sees." Mia nodded, turning towards the stairs to her room. Halfway up, she paused and looked back at her father. "Dad, his name is Leo. Leo Martinez." Rocco repeated the name slowly, like a prayer or a solemn promise. "Leo Martinez, the boy who saved my daughter." He nodded, his gaze distant. "That's a name that's going to matter in this town. That's a name the Phantom Kings will remember. And when the Phantom Kings remembered your name, you were family, whether you wanted to be or not." Asterisk, beep, beep, beep. The incessant sound yanked Leo back from wherever he'd been, someplace dark, quiet, and strangely peaceful. The beeping was annoying, insistent, like an alarm clock he couldn't switch off. He tried to move his arm to swat at it, and that's when the pain introduced itself with a vengeance. Asterisk, Holy Mother of Fire. Asterisk, his entire back was ablaze, flames licking up his spine and across his shoulder blades. Every breath felt like someone was stabbing him with hot knives. His mouth tasted like copper and cotton balls. Leo's eyes snapped open. White ceiling, fluorescent lights, the sterile smell of disinfectant and floor wax. A machine beside him making that goddamn beeping noise, and 4 lines in his left arm. Hospital. Memory came flooding back. The gun, the window, Mia's wide, terror-stricken gray eyes, the impact of bullets punching through his back, the blood, the screaming. "Easy there, kid, don't try to sit up." Leo's head whipped towards the voice, and even that small movement sent fresh agony shooting down his spine. Sitting in a chair beside his bed was a man who looked like he'd been carved from a mountain and then meticulously tattooed by a skilled artist, or perhaps a drunk one. A bald head covered in flame tattoos, a grizzled gray beard, shoulders that could probably support a car, and arms like tree trunks, heavily inked with stories Leo couldn't decipher. The man wore a leather vest, a cut, Leo's brain supplied from somewhere, adorned with patches and pins, and a rocker on the back that proudly declared Phantom Kings MC, * Motorcycle Club. * This man was in a motorcycle club, and he was sitting beside Leo's hospital bed as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Who?" Leo's voice came out as a croak, his throat feeling like sandpaper. The man reached for a plastic cup with a straw, holding it to Leo's lips. Drink small sips. Leo obeyed, too confused and hurting to argue. The water was the best thing he'd ever tasted. Better? The man asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. Leo nodded. Then where's Mia? Did she? She's fine. Not a scratch on her. The man's expression softened slightly. Thanks to you. Relief flooded through Leo, so intense it almost blotted out the pain. She was okay. He'd done it. She was safe. Who are you? Leo managed, his voice a little stronger. The man settled back in his chair, which groaned audibly under his immense weight. Name's Bull. I'm a brother in the Phantom Kings. Been sitting here making sure nobody bothers you while you sleep off the worst of it. How long was I? 14 hours. You coded once in the ambulance, but the docs got you back. 2 bullets. One collapsed your lung. The other just missed your spine by about half an inch. You got lucky. Leo didn't feel lucky. He felt like he'd been hit by a truck, then backed over for good measure. My abuela, he said suddenly, panic rising. My grandmother, she'll be worried. She can't afford. Already taken care of, Bull interrupted smoothly. She's been here twice. Nice lady, doesn't speak much English, but she hugs hard. He smiled faintly. Club made sure she got home safe both times. Also paid for a nurse to check in on her daily while you're laid up. Leo stared, bewildered. What? Hospital bills, too. All of it covered. I can't. Leo's brain was trying to process this and failing spectacularly. I don't have insurance. I can't pay you back. I can't. You're not paying back anything, Bull said, and his tone brooked no argument. You took bullets meant for someone precious to this club. As far as we're concerned, you're owed, not owing. Leo's head was spinning, and not just from the painkillers. I don't understand. Bull leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his expression serious. That girl you saved, Mia, that's Rocco Valentino's daughter. Rocco's our RFP, vice president. She's club royalty, which means the bullets you took were meant to hurt this brotherhood. I didn't know, Leo whispered. I just saw the gun and... We know you didn't know. That's what makes it matter. Bull stood up, and Leo realized the man was even bigger than he'd initially thought, easily 6 feet 5 inches, perhaps 250 pounds of solid muscle. You didn't do it for reward or recognition. You did it because it was right. That's rare, kid. That's valuable. Before Leo could respond, the hospital room door opened and Rocco Valentino walked in. Leo had thought Bull was intimidating, but Rocco was something else entirely. He radiated danger the way the sun radiated heat, constant, inescapable, potentially lethal. His face looked like it had been broken and rebuilt several times, with a nose that had clearly been on the losing end of multiple fights and a deep scar that ran from his left eyebrow to his jawline. But it was his eyes that held Leo frozen, dark, intelligent, and currently examining Leo with an intensity that made him feel like an insect under a microscope. This him. Rocco's voice was gravel in a cement mixer. Yeah, Rock. This is Leo Martinez. Rocco approached the bed slowly, deliberately, as if giving Leo time to process his formidable presence. He pulled up a second chair, a normal hospital chair that looked comically small beneath him, and sat down with his elbows on his knees, mirroring Bull's earlier posture. For a long moment, he just looked at Leo, studied him, assessed him. Leo fought the urge to squirm. Finally, Rocco spoke. You know who I am? Mia's father, Leo said, his voice steadier than he felt. And VP of the Phantom Kings. That's right. Rocco's expression didn't change. You know what you did yesterday? I tried to help. You threw yourself on top of my daughter when bullets were coming through that window. You took 2 rounds in the back. You could have died. Rocco's jaw tightened. You should have died. Doctor said if that second bullet had been half an inch to the right, it would have severed your spine. You'd be paralyzed. Leo swallowed hard, the thought chilling him. Is Mia really okay? And that's when Rocco's expression cracked. Not much, just a slight softening around the eyes, a barely perceptible relaxation in his shoulders, but it was there. She's perfect. Not a scratch. You made sure of that. Rocco reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement, and gripped Leo's forearm. His hand was rough, calloused, scarred, the hand of a man who'd lived hard and fought harder. You gave me the greatest gift anyone's ever given me. You gave me my daughter's life. Leo didn't know what to say to that. What could you say? I didn't really think about it, he admitted, his gaze drifting. I just moved. I know. That's what makes it honorable. Rocco released Leo's arm and sat back. Most people freeze when bullets start flying. Natural human response. But you ran toward the danger to save a girl you didn't even know. I know her, Leo said softly. I mean, I don't know her, but I've seen her at school. She seems. He trailed off, unsure how to finish that sentence. Asterisk nice, sad, beautiful? Asterisk all of those felt inadequate. Lonely, Rocco finished for him, a hint of understanding in his voice. Yeah, she is. Being my daughter comes with a price. Hard to make friends when your dad's in an MC and your life's potentially in danger. He stood up and Leo noticed for the first time that there were other people in the hallway outside his room, men in cuts, standing guard. I need to ask you something important, Rocco said, his tone turning serious. And I need you to be honest with me. Can you do that? Leo nodded, even though moving his head sent a fresh wave of pain shooting down his neck. The guys who did this, the Vipers, they're our enemies. They've been testing us, pushing boundaries. And this shooting, that was an escalation, an act of war. Rocco's expression hardened further. We're going to respond. That's not a question. But before we do, I need to know. Do you remember anything about the shooter? The car? Anything that might help us? Leo closed his eyes, trying to pull details from the chaos of memory. Gray Chevy Malibu, older model, dent in the rear quarter panel, driver's side, tinted windows. I didn't see the shooter's face, just his arm and the gun. When he opened his eyes, Rocco was smiling. It wasn't a nice smile. That's more than enough. We already found the car dumped 3 blocks away, wiped clean. But now we know what we're looking for. He nodded to Bull. Send that to Reaper. Tell him to check traffic cams in a 5-block radius. That dent's distinctive. Bull pulled out his phone and stepped into the hallway. Rocco turned back to Leo. You need anything? Food? Books? Someone to threaten the nurses into giving you better pain meds? Despite everything, Leo almost smiled. I'm okay. You're a 16-year-old kid recovering from gunshot wounds. You're not okay, but you will be. Rocco headed for the door, then paused. Your grandmother, Maria, right? She's a good woman. Worried sick about you. We're making sure she's taken care of while you're in here. And when you get out, he turned back, his expression serious. When you get out, we're going to talk about the future. About options. Options? You saved my daughter. That debt doesn't get paid in cash or handshakes. It gets paid in family. Rocco's gaze was intense. The Phantom Kings take care of our own. And whether you knew it or not, the second you threw yourself on those bullets, you became ours. With that cryptic statement, he left, his heavy boots echoing on the linoleum floor. Leo lay there, his mind reeling. Asterisk family? Asterisk what did that even mean? He didn't have long to wonder. 5 minutes later, the door opened again and Mia walked in. She looked different from the untouchable girl at school. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her face scrubbed clean of makeup, and she wore an oversized hoodie, probably borrowed from someone in the club. She looked younger, more vulnerable, more real. Hi, she said softly, hovering by the door like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to come closer. Hi, Leo echoed, his heart doing weird things in his chest, and he didn't think that was related to the collapsed lung. I wanted to come sooner, but Dad said I should wait until you were awake. Anne. She trailed off, worrying at her bottom lip. Can I sit? Yeah, of course. She pulled the chair Rocco had vacated closer to the bed and sat down, her hands clasped in her lap. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Mia said, "Thank you." Leo shook his head gently, mindful of the pain. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. You saved my life. You almost died saving my life. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. Why did you do it? You don't even know me. I wanted to know you, Leo admitted before his brain could stop his mouth. I mean, not like in a creepy way. You seemed interesting and sad, and I thought maybe we could be friends. A tear slipped down Mia's cheek. Well, we're definitely more than friends now. You can't take bullets for someone and stay at the friend level. What level are we at then? Mia laughed, a wet, slightly hysterical sound. I don't know. Bonded for life? You're stuck with me forever. She wiped at her eyes. Dad's already decided your family, which, fair warning, means you're probably going to have bikers following you around for the foreseeable future. They're very protective. I noticed, Leo said dryly, thinking of the guards in the hallway. I'm sorry, Mia said suddenly, her voice thick. I'm sorry you got hurt because of me. I'm sorry my life is so complicated that people shoot at me. I'm sorry. Stop. Leo reached out with his good arm, the one without the four, and took her hand. Her skin was soft, warm, alive. You didn't ask for those guys to shoot at you. You didn't put that gun in their hands. This isn't your fault. Mia squeezed his hand hard, like she was trying to anchor herself to something real. You're too nice. You know that? Way too nice for this world. Someone's got to be. They sat like that for a while, hand in hand, not speaking. Outside the window, Leo could see the sun setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Another day survived. Another day closer to, what? He didn't know anymore. His whole life had been about survival, scraping by, staying invisible, making it to tomorrow. But now, lying in this hospital bed with Mia's hand in his and motorcycle club members guarding his door, survival felt like the smallest part of a much bigger equation. What happens now? He asked quietly, breaking the silence. Mia looked at him with those gray eyes that had haunted his dreams at Old Joe's. Now you heal. And then she smiled, and it was equal parts promise and warning. Then we figure out what it means to be family with the Phantom Kings. Something told Leo his invisible days were definitely over. Whether that was good or bad, he'd have to wait and see. Leo spent 3 more days in the hospital. 3 days of nurses checking his vitals every 4 hours, of physical therapists helping him sit up without screaming, of doctors poking at his wounds and making thoughtful humming noises that could mean either healing nicely or you might be screwed. 3 days of Isabella visiting every morning, clutching her rosary and weeping with relief, stroking his hair and calling him her pequeño tan valiente, her brave little fool. 3 days of Mia visiting every afternoon, doing her homework in the chair beside his bed, occasionally reading passages aloud to him when the pain meds made him too loopy to focus on his own textbooks. And 3 days of a rotating guard of Phantom Kings members standing watch outside his room. It became a routine Leo almost got used to. Bull on the morning shift, quiet and steady, reading motorcycle magazines and occasionally bringing Leo contraband candy bars when the nurses weren't looking. Reaper in the afternoons, all coiled energy and dark humor, teaching Leo to play chess on a battered travel set. Snake at night, silent as his namesake, radiating menace toward anyone who came near the door. On day 2, the nurses stopped questioning it. On day 3, they started bringing the guards coffee. The weirdest part? Leo felt safer than he'd ever felt in his life. Even in a hospital bed, even with holes in his back and a collapsed lung reinflating and the knowledge that someone had tried to kill Mia, he felt protected. It was an alien, yet comforting, sensation. On the morning of day 4, Dr. Patel, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with kind eyes and no patience for bullshit, gave Leo the news he'd been waiting for. You're healing well, better than I expected, honestly. Your age helps. Young bodies bounce back faster, but you'll need physical therapy for at least 6 weeks. No heavy lifting for 3 months, and these, she tapped the bandages on his back, will scar significantly. That's okay, Leo said. He'd never been the kind of guy who worried about his appearance. And honestly, scars seemed like a fair price for Mia's life. You can go home this afternoon, Dr. Patel continued. But I want you to promise me you'll follow the PT regimen. No shortcuts, no tough guy nonsense. Your back took serious trauma, and if you don't let it heal properly, you could have problems for life. I promise. She studied him for a moment, then glanced at the door where Bull was currently taking up most of the frame. Your friends have been very attentive. Yeah, Leo said, not sure how else to respond. They paid your entire hospital bill in cash. Dr. Patel's expression was carefully neutral. That doesn't happen often. They're grateful. She made a note on her tablet. Well, grateful or not, make sure they understand that you're not invincible. You survived because you got lucky. Next time. She shook her head. Try not to get shot, Mr. Martinez. I'll do my best. After she left, Bull stepped into the room, grinning. Heard the good news. You're sprung. Guess so. Rock wants to see you before you go. You up for a visit, or you need more rest? Leo's pulse kicked up a notch. He hadn't seen Rocco since that first day, though Mia had mentioned her father was handling business, which Leo was learning was code for doing scary motorcycle club things that we don't talk about in polite company. I'm up for it, Leo said. Bull nodded and stepped into the hallway. 30 seconds later, Rocco Valentino walked in, and the room suddenly felt impossibly smaller. Today, Rocco wore his full cut, all patches and pins that signified things in the MC world Leo was only beginning to understand. But it was the expression on his face that made Leo's stomach tighten, satisfaction mixed with something darker, something final. How you feeling, kid? Rocco asked, pulling up the by now familiar chair. Better. Ready to get out of here? Good, because we need to talk. Rocco leaned forward, his voice dropping to a low, intense rumble. You remember what you told me about the car? Leo nodded. That dent you mentioned. We found it. Traffic camera caught the Malibu 2 blocks from Old Joe's heading east. Ran the plate. Naturally, the car was stolen, but its vehicle identification number, VIN, ultimately led them to a chop shop deep within Viper territory. Leo's mouth went dry. Did you find the shooter? He managed to ask, his voice barely a whisper. We found everyone involved, Rocco replied, his smile cold and unfeeling. The driver, the shooter, and the Viper lieutenant who ordered the hit. They had some interesting things to say once we convinced them to talk. Leo didn't ask what convince meant. He wasn't sure he wanted to know. They're done, Rocco continued, his tone chillingly final. The driver and shooter are currently explaining themselves to the police, complete with confessions and evidence we may have helped arrange. They'll be in prison for the next 20 years minimum. Rocco's expression darkened further. And the lieutenant? He won't be ordering any more hits. The finality in those words settled over the room like a shroud. Leo understood what wasn't being said, what couldn't be said, what had happened in whatever warehouse or basement or dark place the Phantom Kings used for their brand of brutal justice. He should have been horrified, should have been scared. Instead, he felt a grim, almost shocking satisfaction. Those men had tried to kill Mia, had shot him, and now they'd faced consequences. Was that wrong? Probably. But sitting in this hospital bed, his back still throbbing with every breath, Leo found it hard to care about moral ambiguity. Thank you, he said quietly, meaning it with every fiber of his being. Rocco's eyebrows rose slightly. You're thanking me? You made sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. Damn right I did. Rocco reached into the inside pocket of his biker vest, his cut, and pulled out a thick envelope. Which brings me to why I'm here. You're getting out today, which means you're going back to real life, school, your grandmother, all of it. But that life's going to look different now. He handed Leo the envelope. Inside was a thick wad of bills, all hundreds, easily $5,000. I can't, Leo started, his voice thick with disbelief. It's not charity, Rocco interrupted, his voice firm. It's compensation for what you did, for what you lost. He ticked off points on his fingers. You missed a week of school. Your clothes were destroyed. Your grandmother's been stressed to hell and back. This covers it. It's too much. It's not enough, but it's a start. Rocco's formidable expression softened slightly. Kid, you saved my daughter. Money can't repay that. But I can make sure you and your abuela don't have to choose between rent and food anymore. I can make sure you don't have to eat ketchup packets for dinner. That's the least I can do. Leo's eyes burned. When was the last time someone had looked out for him like this? When was the last time anyone had cared if he had enough to eat? There's something else, Rocco added, his gaze intense. At school, I heard you've been having problems. Leo's jaw tightened. Of course, the club had looked into his life. Of course, they knew about Brett Hoffman and his goons. It's fine, he muttered, trying to dismiss it. It's not fine, but it will be. Rocco stood up, his frame casting a long shadow. The guys who've been giving you grief? They're going to learn some manners. Not from me. I don't hit kids. But his smile was predatory, a flash of danger. Let's just say their fathers and I are going to have some conversations. Father to father. Before Leo could respond, there was a gentle knock on the door. Bull stuck his massive head in. Rock, the princess is here. And she brought a care package. Mia entered, carrying a duffel bag that looked almost as big as she was. She dumped it on the foot of Leo's bed with a soft thump. Clothes, she announced, since yours got shredded by bullets and glass. Also, your homework from the past week. Sorry, but Mrs. Chin insisted. She paused. And some books Reaper said you might like. Then, with a flourish, she pulled out a leather jacket. It wasn't a full club cut, but a beautiful, well-made jacket, black with sleek silver zippers. The club wants you to have it, she said. It's not membership or anything, just a thank you. Leo ran his fingers over the smooth, rich leather. It was the nicest piece of clothing he'd ever owned. Try it on, Mia urged, her eyes bright. With Bull's careful help, Leo sat up, gritting his teeth against the fresh surge of pain, and shrugged into the jacket. It fit perfectly, the leather supple and warm, molding to his frame as if custom-made. Looks good, Rocco said with a nod of approval. Suits you. Leo caught his reflection in the bathroom mirror across the room. The skinny kid in thrift store clothes was gone. In his place was someone who looked tougher, more substantial, like he finally belonged somewhere. Thank you, he said, the words heavy with genuine gratitude. That's just the beginning, Rocco stated. When you're healed up, we'll talk more about what comes next. But for now, he clapped a massive hand on Leo's shoulder. The good one. You focus on getting better, on taking care of your grandmother, on being a kid. And maybe spending some time with me, Mia added with a small, hopeful smile. If you want, no pressure. Leo looked at her. This girl he'd saved. This girl whose father commanded loyalty through both fear and respect. This girl who somehow looked at him like he was somebody worth knowing. Yeah, he said, a genuine smile touching his lips. I'd like that. Rocco's phone buzzed, pulling him away from the moment. He glanced at it and his expression hardened immediately. Got a call. Club business. He pointed a finger at Leo. You take care of yourself. And if you need anything at all, you call Bull. He'll make sure it happens. After Rocco left, Mia perched on the edge of Leo's bed, careful not to jostle his injuries. He likes you, she said simply. Your dad. Yeah, that's rare. Dad doesn't trust easily, and he definitely doesn't hand out cash and jackets to random people. She picked idly at a loose thread on her hoodie. You impressed him. Hell, you impressed all of them. I just did what anyone would do, Leo mumbled, uncomfortable with the praise. No, Mia said firmly. You did what a hero would do. There's a difference. Before Leo could argue further, Bull appeared in the doorway again. Discharge papers are ready. You got a ride home, kid? Or you want one of us to take you? Leo thought about his grandmother's ancient sedan, which may or may not start on any given day. I think I need a ride, he admitted. Done. I'll pull my truck around. As Bull left, Mia squeezed Leo's hand gently. Welcome to the family, Leo Martinez, she said, her voice soft but sincere. It's going to be a wild ride. Looking at her, this beautiful, damaged, dangerous girl who'd somehow become the center of his world in the span of a bullet's flight, Leo couldn't help but agree. His life as the Invisible Boy was over. What came next, he had no idea. But for the first time in 16 years, Leo Martinez wasn't facing it alone. The ride from the hospital to Leo's apartment building should have taken 15 minutes. With Bull driving his massive F-250, matte black with the Phantom Kings logo subtly airbrushed on the tailgate, and 3 other bikes forming an escort, it took 25. Apparently, when the Phantom Kings moved through town, traffic simply got out of the way. Leo sat in the passenger seat, his new leather jacket feeling both foreign and perfectly right against his skin, watching the familiar streets of his neighborhood pass by. Everything looked the same. The bodega on the corner where he bought day-old bread, the laundromat where his abuela spent every Saturday, the basketball court where he learned to avoid eye contact to avoid getting picked on. But Leo felt different. Changed in ways he was only just beginning to understand. "You're quiet," Bull observed, expertly navigating around a double-parked delivery truck. "Just thinking," Leo gestured vaguely at the window. "Going back to school, to normal life." "Except nothing's normal anymore, is it?" Bull was silent for a moment. Then, "Normal's so overrated. You know what's better than normal? Being alive. Being valued. Having people who've got your back." He glanced at Leo, his gaze steady. "You got shot protecting one of ours. That makes you one of ours. Whether you wear a patch or not. You understand what that means?" "Not really," Leo admitted honestly. "It means you're not alone anymore. It means when someone messes with you, they mess with the whole club." Bull pulled up to Leo's building, a 4-story walk-up with crumbling brick and sturdy bars on the ground floor windows. "It means you matter." The words hit Leo harder than he expected. You matter. When was the last time someone had said that to him, truly meant it? His abuela was waiting on the stoop, wrapped in her flowered shawl despite the mild October weather. The moment she saw Leo, she was moving faster than a 70-year-old woman with bad knees should be able to move. "Mi niño." Bull had barely put the truck in park before she was yanking open the passenger door, pulling Leo into a fierce hug that made his healing wound scream in protest. Leo didn't care. He hugged her back, breathing in her familiar scent of lavender soap and peppermint candies. She was crying and scolding him in rapid Spanish, something about estúpido and valiente and nunca más. Never again. Leo just held her, letting her get it all out, letting her be scared and relieved and angry all at once. When she finally pulled back, she turned to Bull with fierce, questioning eyes. "Tu cuidaste él? Asterisk, you took care of him?" Bull's Spanish was clearly limited, but he understood enough. "Yes, ma'am. We took care of him." She studied Bull for a long moment, this massive tattooed biker who probably outweighed her by 180 pounds, then nodded sharply. "Bueno, gracias." Asterisk, "Good, thank you." Asterisk, then she was gently guiding Leo toward the building, one hand on his elbow, supporting him as if he might collapse at any moment. "Leo, phone." Bull called out. Leo turned to find Bull holding out a cell phone. Not Leo's battered flip phone that barely made calls, but a newer smartphone in a protective case. "From the club," Bull explained. "My number's programmed in. So's rocks, Mia's, and ghosts. You need anything at all, you call day or night." Leo took the phone, feeling its surprising weight. Another gift he didn't quite know how to accept. "Thank you," he said, the words feeling inadequate as always. Bull just nodded. "Get some rest, kid. And keep that jacket close. There are people in this neighborhood who will think twice about starting trouble if they see you wearing King's gear." As Bull drove away, the bikes falling in behind him like an honor guard departing, Leo's grandmother squeezed his arm. "Buenas personas," she said quietly. "Good people." Leo wasn't sure good was the right word for the Phantom Kings, but loyal, protective, willing to commit felonies on your behalf, yeah, those fit. The apartment was exactly as Leo had left it, cramped, cluttered, but meticulously clean. His abuela kept their small space spotless, even if she couldn't do anything about the peeling wallpaper or the radiator that clanked like a dying robot. She'd made his favorite meal, arroz con pollo, the chicken falling off the bone, the rice seasoned perfectly. Leo's stomach growled in anticipation. Hospital food had been edible at best. As they ate, his grandmother filled him in on what he'd missed. The neighbors had been gossiping, of course. Mrs. Ramirez from 3B was convinced Leo had joined a gang. Mr. Park from across the hall thought Leo was in witness protection. The truth, that Leo had saved a motorcycle club VP's daughter, was somehow both more and less dramatic than their wild theories. "They brought money," his abuela said suddenly, her fork pausing halfway to her mouth. "The big one, Bull, he came 3 times. Each time he gave me cash for food," he said, "for bills." Her eyes were suspicious, narrowing slightly. "De donde viene esto?" Asterisk, where does this money come from? Leo chose his words carefully. "From people who are grateful I helped their daughter. That's all." That is not all. She fixed him with the look that had made him confess to breaking her favorite vase when he was 7. These men, they are dangerous, yes? Sometimes when they need to be. And you? Are you dangerous now? Leo thought about the bullets in his back, about the cold satisfaction he'd felt hearing that Mia's attackers had been dealt with. I don't think so, he replied slowly, but I'm not going to be invisible anymore either. His grandmother was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached across the table and took his hand, her grip surprisingly strong. When your mother died, I promised her I would keep you safe. Keep you good. Her grip tightened further. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe safe and good is not enough in this world, Abuela. She met his gaze directly. These men, they protected you. They protected me. They made sure we could eat, could pay our bills, could live without fear. Her eyes softened. Your mother, she would not like them, but she is not here. And we are. And you're alive because you have a good heart. She stood up, kissed his forehead, and began clearing the dishes. Subject closed. Leo sat there, processing. His grandmother, who prayed the rosary every night and crossed herself when passing a church, had just given her blessing to his association with a motorcycle club. The world really had turned upside down. Leo returned to school the following Monday. He'd been dreading it. A week and a half of absence meant a mountain of makeup work. It meant awkward questions about where he'd been. It meant facing Brett Hoffman and his cronies, who'd made Leo's life hell since freshman year. What Leo hadn't anticipated was the escort. At 7:15 a.m., a knock on his apartment door revealed Bull and Reaper, both looking way too awake for that hour. Morning, kid, Bull rumbled, a deep vibration in his chest. We're your ride to school. I can take the bus, Leo offered, still trying to grasp the situation. You could, Reaper interrupted smoothly, or you could show up in style. Your choice. 30 minutes later, Leo walked through the front gates of Riverside High, flanked by 2 massive bikers in full club cuts, their motorcycles idling at the curb behind them like chrome and steel dragons. Every head turned, every single head in the quad, normally buzzing with pre-class chatter, fell silent as Leo crossed toward the main building. He saw Melissa Park's jaw drop. Saw Kevin Tran literally stop mid-step. Saw Brett Hoffman and his football buddies freeze like deer caught in headlights. Bull walked Leo right to the main office, ignoring the stunned stares, his hand hovering protectively near Leo's shoulder. You good from here? Bull asked. Yeah, thanks for the ride, Leo replied, a new confidence in his voice. Anytime. Bull's gaze swept the hallway, landing on Brett's group. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture did, a subtle shift that broadcast a clear message. Asterisk, I see you. I know you. And I will remember your face. Brett went pale. After Bull and Reaper left, their engines roaring loud enough to rattle the school windows, Leo stood in the hallway, acutely aware of every eye still on him. Holy shit, Martinez. Kevin Tran approached cautiously, like Leo might explode. Was that? Are you in a gang now? No, Leo said truthfully, though the words felt strange even to him. I'm just friends with some people who ride motorcycles. Those weren't just people who ride motorcycles. Those were Phantom Kings. Kevin lowered his voice conspiratorially. My dad says they're dangerous. They're loyal, Leo corrected. There's a difference. Before Kevin could respond, Mia appeared at Leo's locker. She wore black jeans, a gray sweater, and her usual, don't mess with me expression. But when she saw Leo, her face transformed, breaking into a genuine smile that made his heart do stupid, happy things. You came, she said, her voice laced with warmth. Had to. Mrs. Chin's calculus homework won't do itself. He grinned. Walk me to class? They fell into step together, and Leo felt the atmosphere around them shift palpably. Mia Chun, the mysterious transfer student, the girl who'd rejected every social overture since arriving, was walking with Leo Martinez, smiling at him, acting like they were friends, or more than friends. Leo didn't know, but he knew it felt right. At Mia's first period classroom, she paused. Lunch? Sure. Where? Her smile turned mischievous. Cafeteria. Let's give them something to really talk about. Lunchtime at Riverside High was a carefully orchestrated social hierarchy. The popular kids, athletes, cheerleaders, student council members, ruled the center tables. The nerds claimed the corner by the windows. The art kids took over the tables near the vending machines. And the outcasts? They ate in bathrooms, hallways, or off-campus if they could manage it. Leo had always been an outcast. But today, when he entered the cafeteria with his tray of mystery meat and wilted salad, Mia was waiting at a center table. Not at the edge, not in the corner, but dead center where everyone could see. She'd saved him a seat. Leo hesitated. This was Brett Hoffman territory. This was social suicide. You coming or not? Mia called out, loud enough for half the cafeteria to hear. Screw it, Leo thought. He'd already taken bullets. High school politics seemed pretty tame in comparison. He walked over and sat down. The cafeteria erupted in whispers. Ignore them, Mia said, stealing a fry from his tray with a practiced move. They'll get over it. Will they? Probably not, but who cares? She leaned in conspiratorially. Want to hear something funny? Leo nodded, intrigued. Brett Hoffman's dad got a visit from my dad yesterday. Apparently, Mr. Hoffman, Sr., works in construction, and his company does a lot of business with firms that have connections to the club. Mia's smile was sharp, almost wicked. My dad didn't threaten him or anything. He just mentioned very casually that his daughter had made a friend at school. A friend named Leo Martinez, a friend who deserved to be treated with respect. She paused for effect. Funny thing, Brett's dad called him right after. Had a long talk about bullying and consequences. As if summoned by the mention of his name, Brett Hoffman appeared at their table. But this wasn't the swaggering bully who'd shoved Leo into lockers for 2 years. This was a nervous kid who looked like he might throw up. Hey, Martinez, Brett said, his voice strained and tight. Can I talk to you? Like, privately? Leo glanced at Mia, who gave a slight nod. They moved to an empty corner of the cafeteria. Look, Brett started, not quite meeting Leo's eyes. My dad told me what you did. Saving that girl. Saving her. He jerked his chin toward Mia. That's pretty badass, okay? And he also told me that her dad is someone I really don't want to piss off. Brett swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. So, I'm sorry for being a dick. For the locker stuff and all of it. I'm sorry. Leo stared. Brett Hoffman was apologizing. Brett Hoffman, who'd once dumped Leo's backpack in a toilet, was apologizing. Why? Leo asked, incredulous. Because my dad scared the crap out of me. And because. Brett ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of vulnerability. Because you did something brave, and I've spent 2 years making your life hell for no reason. That's not cool. It wasn't a great apology. It was motivated by fear more than genuine remorse. But it was something. Okay, Leo said, after a moment. Okay. Yeah, just leave me alone from now on. We don't have to be friends, but we don't have to be enemies either. Relief flooded Brett's face. Deal. And if anyone else gives you trouble, let me know. I'll handle it. As Brett practically scurried away, Leo returned to the table where Mia was waiting, a knowing look in her eyes. Well, she asked. He apologized. Good. He should. She studied Leo's face, a hint of concern in her gaze. You okay? You look weird. I'm fine, Leo said, though he wasn't entirely convinced himself. Just adjusting to. What? To people being afraid of me? Or being nice to me because they're afraid of your dad? To all of this. He gestured vaguely at the cafeteria, at the kids who were still staring at his new leather jacket and his new, radically altered life. Mia's expression softened. I know it's a lot, but you'll get used to it. Will I? You saved my life, Leo. That changed things for both of us. She took his hand under the table, her fingers warm and solid, a silent anchor. But some changes are good, right? Looking at her, at this girl who'd brought chaos and danger and a sense of belonging into his carefully invisible life, Leo found himself nodding. Yeah, he said, the conviction growing with each word. Some changes are good. The Viper's nest had been a persistent thorn in the Phantom King's side for 3 years. Small-time dealers who'd gotten ambitious, pushing into King's territory, undercutting prices, and recruiting young kids as mules. They were led by a man called Cisco, a former King's prospect who'd been voted out after stealing from the club treasury. Cisco held a deep grudge, and grudges in the motorcycle club world were often paid in blood. The attack on Mia had been his desperate play for respect, his way of proving the Vipers could strike at the King's heart and get away with it. He'd been wrong. In the weeks since Leo's shooting, the Phantom Kings had been working. Not the loud, public work that drew immediate attention, no burned buildings or bodies left in the street. No, this was surgical, precise, the kind of operation that required meticulous intelligence gathering, endless patience, and connections that ran through every shadowy level of the city's underworld. They'd identified every member of the Viper's nest, mapped their territory with terrifying accuracy, found their stash houses, their safe spots, even their girlfriends' apartments. They'd tapped phones, bribed witnesses, and called in favors from dirty cops who owed the club. And then, on a Tuesday night 2 weeks after the shooting, they struck. Leo didn't know any of this was happening. He was at physical therapy, gritting his teeth while a sadistic PT named Denise made him do exercises that felt like someone was driving nails into his spine. His back was healing, though at a painfully slow pace, each session leaving him both sore and profoundly exhausted. After physical therapy, Bull would routinely pick him up, a rhythm they had naturally fallen into. The imposing biker would drive Leo home, ensure Isabella had everything she needed, and sometimes even stay for dinner. It was undeniably strange, yet also undeniably comforting. It was, in its own unexpected way, family. But that night, as they were leaving the clinic, Bull's phone rang. A terse "yeah" from Bull was followed by a hardening of his expression as he listened. Understood. I'll be there. He ended the call, then turned to Leo. Change of plans. You're coming with me. Where? Leo asked. Clubhouse. Rock wants you there. Why? Bull's smile was grim, a hint of steel in his eyes. You'll see. The Phantom Kings clubhouse was a hive of intense energy when they arrived. Motorcycles were parked everywhere, brothers in their cuts were meticulously checking weapons and poring over maps. The very air thrummed with a potent mix of anticipation and barely contained violence. Ghost, the club president, stood at the heart of it all, orchestrating the controlled chaos with a quiet, unwavering authority. When his gaze landed on Leo, he gave a curt nod. Martinez, good. You're just in time for what? Leo prompted. An education. Rocco emerged from the back room, a figure clad entirely in black, his cut worn over a bulletproof vest. He clapped Leo on his good shoulder, a gesture mindful of his still healing injuries. How's the back getting better? Good. Because I want you to see something. Understand something. Rocco's expression was grave, his voice low and serious. You saved Mia. That made you family. But family means more than just protection. It means justice. And tonight, we deliver justice. He led Leo to a large table strewn with surveillance photographs. Men, cars, buildings, the Vipers, Rocco explained. Every member, every location. We've been watching them for 2 weeks, waiting for the precise moment. He tapped one photo in particular, a lean man with unsettlingly dead eyes and a jagged scar across his throat. This is Cisco. He ordered the hit on Mia. Leo stared at the image, a cold, intense rage blossoming in his chest. This was the man who had tried to murder her, the man whose bullets had pierced him. What are you going to do? Leo asked, his voice tight. We're going to dismantle his organization. Every stash house hit tonight. Every member arrested or run out of town. And Cisco, Rocco's smile was predatory, a chilling promise. Cisco is going to disappear. You're going to kill him? I'm going to make sure he never threatens my family again. Rocco's eyes met Leo's, unwavering. That bother you? Leo thought of Mia's vibrant smile, of Isabella finally sleeping without fear, of walking through school without needing to constantly look over his shoulder. No, he said quietly, firmly. It doesn't bother me. Good, Rocco affirmed, because you're coming along. Not to fight, you're still healing, but to witness, to understand what it truly means to be under the King's protection. Rocco's hand tightened on Leo's shoulder, a silent, weighty assurance. This is what we do for family. They moved out in a formidable convoy, 20 motorcycles, 4 trucks, a perfectly coordinated assault targeting 6 locations simultaneously. Leo rode in Rocco's truck, watching the city lights blur past as he listened to the tense, efficient radio chatter. Team Alpha in position. Team Bravo ready. Team Charlie, we have eyes on the target. It was a display of military-grade precision, terrifying in its flawless execution. The first target was a dilapidated house in the industrial district, one of the Vipers' stash houses. The Kings didn't bother with a knock. They breached the door with a battering ram, then flooded inside like an unstoppable tide of leather and fury. Leo remained in the truck, observing through the windows. He saw Vipers dragged outside, swiftly zip-tied and tossed into vans. He watched as duffel bags brimming with cash and drugs were seized. In under 10 minutes, the house was stripped clean. No shots were fired, no casualties suffered, only overwhelming force and absolute control. This is mercy, Rocco stated from the driver's seat, his voice devoid of emotion. We could have burned it down with them inside. Instead, they get to live, get to run, get to tell stories about what happens when you mess with the Phantom Kings. They hit the second location, then the third and the fourth. Each time, the result was identically swift, brutal, and utterly efficient. The Viper's nest was being systematically destroyed, piece by piece. By midnight, only one target remained: Cisco. The warehouse stood isolated on the edge of the river, abandoned and rusted, the sort of place where dark deeds transpired and no questions were ever asked. Intelligence indicated Cisco was inside, holed up and waiting for the heat to subside. He'd be waiting for a very long time. The Kings encircled the building with quiet precision. Rocco turned to Leo. You can stay here if you want. This part gets ugly. Leo considered it. He thought about the safe choice, the morally convenient choice, the choice that would keep his hands clean. Then he remembered Mia's screams, the visceral image of his own blood soaking her hands. I want to see, he said, his voice firm. Rocco nodded, unsurprised. Then let's go. They entered through the main door with no pretense of stealth or subtlety. Ghost simply kicked it open, and the entire club poured inside like an avenging army. Cisco was in the center of the vast warehouse, surrounded by his remaining lieutenants, perhaps a dozen men, all armed, all radiating desperate fear. You've got nowhere to run, Cisco, Ghost's voice boomed, echoing through the cavernous space. Your crew's gone. Your stash houses are empty. It's over. Fuck, you. Cisco's voice cracked with fear, thinly disguised by a veneer of bravado. You think you can just roll up on me? I got guns too. You got guns? Rocco agreed, stepping forward, his presence formidable. We got numbers and skill and righteousness. His eyes, cold and unflinching, found Cisco across the distance. You ordered a hit on my daughter. My daughter. What exactly did you think would happen? Cisco raised his pistol, his hands visibly shaking. Stay back or I'll. The gunshot was thunderous in the enclosed space, but it didn't come from Cisco. Reaper, positioned on a catwalk high above, had put a round precisely through Cisco's gun hand. The pistol clattered to the floor as Cisco screamed, clutching his shattered fingers. The other Vipers, witnessing the swift, brutal efficiency, immediately threw down their weapons. Smart. Ghost made a subtle gesture, and the Kings moved in, securing the Vipers, zip-tying their hands, and thoroughly checking for hidden weapons. It was over in a matter of seconds. Rocco walked up to Cisco, who was now on his knees, cradling his bleeding hand. You made a mistake, Rocco said conversationally, his voice dangerously calm. You thought hitting my family would make you look strong. All it did was paint a target on your back. He crouched down, bringing himself eye level with the whimpering man. The boy you shot, he's 16. Threw himself on bullets to save my daughter. That's honor. What you did, that's cowardice. Please, Cisco gasped, his face pale with terror. Please, I'll leave town. You'll do what I tell you to do. Rocco stood up straight. Snake. Snake appeared instantly, holding a burner phone. He placed it in Cisco's good hand. "You're going to call the DEA," Rocco instructed, his voice low and menacing. "You're going to confess to every crime you've committed. Drug trafficking, attempted murder, all of it. And you're going to give them every name, every location, every single detail." His smile was chillingly cold. "Congratulations, Cisco. You're going to be a snitch. And when you get to prison, and you will get to prison, everyone will know." Cisco's face went utterly white. In the criminal underworld, being labeled a snitch was a death sentence, even behind bars. "You can't, I can. I am. Make the call, or I'll shoot your other hand and make it for you." 10 minutes later, the DEA had a full confession on tape. Cisco was left zip-tied for the arriving police to find, along with more than enough evidence to put him away for 20 years. As the Kings filed out of the warehouse, Rocco pulled Leo aside. "What did you learn tonight?" Leo thought about it. The precision, the overwhelming force. The way the club had dismantled an enemy without mercy, yet also without unnecessary cruelty. "That justice doesn't always come from courts," he said slowly, thoughtfully. "And that family is worth fighting for." Rocco's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "You're learning, kid. That's good." He gently steered Leo toward the trucks. "Let's get you home. Your grandmother's probably worried." As they drove away, leaving the warehouse and its broken gang leader behind, Leo felt a strange, profound sense of closure. The men who had shot him, who had tried to kill Mia, were gone, arrested, scattered, destroyed. The debt was paid. The balance was restored. And Leo Martinez, for the very first time in his life, felt like he belonged to something bigger than himself, something worth the scars he now carried. 3 weeks later, Leo stood in front of his bathroom mirror, examining the scars on his back. 2 puckered circles of scar tissue, entry wounds that would mark him for life. The doctors had assured him they would fade over time, becoming less angry and red, but they would never truly disappear. Leo didn't mind. They were proof. Evidence that he had done something that truly mattered. His phone buzzed, the newer one Bull had given him. A text from Mia. "Clubhouse tonight. Family dinner. Dad says you better be there." Leo smiled. A family dinner at the Phantom Kings Clubhouse meant barbecue, beer, root beer for Leo and Mia, and, most importantly, brotherhood. It meant being welcomed into a circle most people spent years earning even a glimpse of. It meant home. He pulled on his leather jacket, the one the club had given him, now worn comfortable from weeks of use, and headed out. The clubhouse was bustling when Leo arrived. Brothers, their old ladies, kids darting around the yard. The rich scent of grilling meat mingled with the faint aroma of motorcycle exhaust. Music blared from speakers someone had rigged up, classic rock, loud enough to feel reverberating in his chest. Mia found him immediately, her eyes lighting up as she grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the picnic tables where food was being laid out. "You're late," she accused playfully. "I'm exactly on time, which in club time is late." But she was smiling and she didn't let go of his hand. They had been doing this a lot lately, holding hands, sitting close, existing in a space that was clearly more than friendship, but hadn't quite been defined yet. Leo was perfectly fine with that. Mia was alive, safe, and right here. Labels could wait. Rocco spotted them and waved them over. He stood beside Ghost, both men in their cuts, looking more relaxed than Leo had ever seen them. "Martinez." Rocco's voice boomed across the yard, carrying above the din, "Get over here. Got something for you." Leo approached cautiously. In his experience, surprises from Rocco could range from incredibly generous gifts to terrifying new responsibilities. Ghost held out a box, intricately carved from wood with the Phantom Kings logo. "Open it," he said. Inside was a leather vest. Not a full cut, Leo wasn't a patched member, but a vest nonetheless. Black leather, simple in design, and on the back, embroidered in elegant silver thread, "Friend of the club." "It's not a patch," Ghost explained, his voice even. "But it's recognition. It means you're under our protection. It means you've earned our respect." He met Leo's eyes, his own steady. "It means you're family." Leo's throat tightened. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Rocco rumbled, a warmth in his voice. "Say you'll wear it with pride." Leo lifted the vest from the box, feeling its weight. Lighter than a full cut, yet somehow heavier with profound meaning. Yes, he managed. Thank you. Rocco clapped him on the back, still on the good shoulder, always mindful of Leo's healing injuries. Put it on, kid. Leo slipped the vest over his jacket. It fit perfectly, snug across his shoulders, the leather supple and new. The club erupted in cheers. Bull handed Leo a root beer, raising his own beer in a toast. To Leo Martinez, the kid with more balls than sense and a heart bigger than his brain. Everyone drank. Even the old ladies joined in, raising their beers in salute. Leo felt tears prick his eyes, but he blinked them back. Men didn't cry at MC barbecues. Probably. Mia squeezed his hand, her smile radiant. Looks good on you. Yeah, Leo agreed, a little choked up. Yeah. She leaned in close, her breath warm against his ear. My dad doesn't give those out lightly. He really cares about you. I care about him, too, Leo admitted, his voice quiet. About all of you. It was true. Somewhere in the past month, between hospital visits and school escorts and chaotic, comforting family dinners, the Phantom Kings had ceased being scary strangers and had truly become family. A weird, sometimes violent, fiercely loyal family, but family nonetheless. As the evening wore on, Leo found himself conversing easily with various club members. Bull regaled him with stories from his time in the Marines. Reaper patiently taught Leo basic motorcycle maintenance. Snake, still undeniably terrifying, surprised Leo with a pocket knife and a gruff, just in case. And through it all, Mia remained by his side, her presence a constant, reassuring warmth. As the sun began to set and the first fireflies emerged, Rocco pulled Leo aside once more. They walked to the edge of the property, away from the boisterous noise and laughter. You know, Rocco began, his gaze fixed on the darkening sky. When Mia was born, I made a promise to her mother. I promised I'd keep our daughter safe, no matter what, no matter the cost. Leo listened intently, sensing the profound weight of Rocco's words. For 16 years, I've kept that promise. I've scared off boys who looked at her wrong. I've intimidated teachers who graded her unfairly. I've done questionable things to protect her. Rocco turned to Leo, his eyes piercing. And then you showed up. This scrawny kid I'd never met, throwing himself on bullets without hesitation. And you know what I thought? What I thought was, that's the kind of man I want my daughter to know. Someone who acts without thinking of himself. Someone who sees what's right and does it. Consequences be damned. Rocco's expression was utterly serious now. You're young. You're still figuring out who you are. But I see potential in you, Leo. I see honor. Leo swallowed hard. I'm just trying to do my best. I know, Rocco affirmed. That's why I trust you. Rocco pulled something from his pocket, a challenge coin, embossed with the Phantom Kings logo. This is my personal coin. Only a handful exist. You ever need anything, and I mean anything, you show this coin, and any king will help you. No questions asked. Leo took the coin, feeling its cool weight in his palm. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Having this coin means you're tied to us. To our world. Things might get complicated. Things are already complicated, Leo countered with a small wry smile. Rocco laughed, a genuine, hearty sound that transformed his scarred face. Fair point. Come on. Let's get back before Mia thinks I'm scaring you off. As they walked back toward the lights and laughter, Leo felt the coin warm in his pocket, the vest comfortable on his shoulders, and Mia's smile waiting for him. He had started this journey as an invisible boy simply trying to survive. Now he was Leo Martinez, friend of the Phantom Kings, protector of daughters, a bearer of scars and stories. And for the first time in his 16 years, Leo felt like he knew exactly who he was supposed to be. The autumn sun painted Riverside high in shades of gold as Leo Martinez pulled into the student parking lot. Not on a bus, not dropped off by a biker escort, but on his own motorcycle, a used Harley Sportster that Rocco had helped him buy and Bull had taught him to maintain. He parked next to Mia's car, a sensible sedan that she drove with terrifying speed and zero regard for traffic laws. She was waiting for him, leaning casually against her door, looking radiant in the late afternoon light. "Took you long enough," she said, though her smile softened the accusation. "Had to stop for gas." "Excuses," she teased, falling into step beside him, her hand finding his automatically. A year together, and that simple touch still made his heart race. They'd been officially dating for 8 months now, ever since the winter formal where Leo had asked her in the most awkward way possible, and she'd said yes before he'd even finished the question. Rocco had given his blessing, with the explicit caveat that Leo treat her right or answer directly to him. Leo intended to do exactly that. As they walked through the bustling hallways, other students nodded to them, not with fear, though some of the newer freshmen definitely looked nervous around Leo, but with a palpable respect. Leo Martinez was known now, not as the invisible scholarship kid, but as the guy who had taken bullets for his girlfriend. The guy who wore a friend of the club Phantom King's vest and got escorted to school by bikers on his birthday. The guy you definitely didn't mess with. Brett Hoffman, now genuinely reformed after a year of behavioral therapy his dad had insisted on, actually waved. "Hey, Leo." "Mia." "Brett," Leo acknowledged, the exchange civil, almost friendly. Life was weird like that sometimes. After school, they drove to Old Joe's Burger Joint, rebuilt after the shooting, with new windows installed, but otherwise unchanged. It had become their spot, the place where everything had irrevocably changed. As they ate fries and talked about college applications, both planning to stay local, to stay near family, Leo's phone buzzed. A text from Rocco. "Club vote tonight. Important. Be there." Leo showed Mia, who raised an eyebrow. "Dad's been mysterious about this one. Won't tell me what the vote's about." "Guess we'll find out," Leo murmured. The clubhouse was packed that evening, every member present, the room heavy with anticipation. Leo and Mia sat in the gallery, the area reserved for family who weren't patched members, and waited. Ghost stood at the front of the room, his silver hair catching the light. "Brothers, we're here for an important vote. A decision that affects this club's future." He gestured to Rocco, who stood. "A year ago," Rocco began, his voice solemn, "my daughter almost died. A kid none of us knew threw himself on bullets to save her. Since then, Leo Martinez has proven himself time and time again. He's kept our secrets. He's honored our trust. He's become family." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. "But he's also 17, still in high school, still figuring out his life." Rocco looked directly at Leo. "So, I'm not bringing emotion to patch him in." "Not yet. That's a decision he needs to make when he's ready, when he understands fully what it means." Leo felt Mia squeeze his hand, a silent reassurance. "What I am proposing," Rocco continued, his voice firm, "is that we offer Leo a prospect position when he turns 18. Give him the option to earn his patch if he wants it. No pressure, no expectations, just an open door." Ghost called for a vote. Every hand in the room went up, a sea of unanimity. "Motion passes," Ghost announced, his voice ringing with finality. "Leo Martinez, when you're ready, the Phantom Kings will be ready for you." After the meeting, as brothers congratulated him and Mia beamed with pride, Rocco pulled Leo aside one last time. "You don't have to decide now," he said, his gaze thoughtful. "You've got time. College, career, whatever you want, it's all on the table." "What if I want this?" Leo asked, meeting Rocco's eyes. "What if I want a prospect, earn my patch?" Rocco studied him carefully. "Then you'd be following a hard path. It's not easy being a king. It requires sacrifice, loyalty above all else. Living by a code most people don't understand. But it also means family, brotherhood, belonging." "Yes," Rocco agreed, a profound understanding in his voice. "It means all of that." Leo looked around the clubhouse, Bull teaching a prospect how to do an oil change, Reaper arguing good-naturedly about motorcycle brands, Snake standing quietly in the corner, but watching everything with those sharp, observant eyes. Mia laughing with one of the old ladies. It was home. "I'll think about it," Leo said, his voice soft, "but I'm pretty sure I already know my answer." Rocco smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his scarred face into something almost gentle. "Take your time. We're not going anywhere." As Leo walked back to Mia, his new vest comfortable on his shoulders, his scars hidden beneath his shirt. He felt profoundly complete. Not because he had found all the answers, but because he had found the questions that truly mattered. Asterisk, who was he? Asterisk, a kid who had been invisible and was now seeing. Asterisk, what did he want? Asterisk, to protect the people he loved. Asterisk, where did he belong? Asterisk, right here, with this strange, violent, fiercely loyal family. Mia slipped her arm through his. Ready to go? Yeah, let's go home. They walked out into the crisp autumn evening, the fading sounds of laughter and motorcycle engines following them. The Phantom Kings logo, stitched into Leo's vest, caught the last, dying light of the setting sun. Behind them, Rocco watched his daughter leave with the boy who had saved her. And he felt something he rarely allowed himself to feel: peace. The debt had been paid. The circle was complete. And Leo Martinez, once invisible, now unforgettable, rode off into the night, his future bright with possibilities, his past marked by bullets and bravery.